Red Balloon Rock Talk.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. New week, new episode. This one's going to be really cool. Before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone knows you're watching Lead Balloon and Rock Talk. I'm Mark, and this is my brother Jim, and we get together every week just to have a little fun, just talking about music and things we really enjoy, and have some fun doing some homework in between. It's actually quite enlightening, to be quite honest with you. And so our topic this week was definitely something we have a very big interest in. And 2 weeks ago was the anniversary of the real Woodstock. And I say the real Woodstock because there's been a couple other ones along the way. It just doesn't pan out to be the same thing. You can never reproduce the original or the classic. But anyway, what we're doing is we're going to give you our top 25 songs from the entire Woodstock weekend. And you want to talk about difficult. This was a very challenging episode to put together for both of us. And I was literally just editing 10 minutes ago my list because it was just too long. But hopefully we'll add some tidbits of information in there that are fun facts for everybody. And I think we'll have a good time at this one.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, before we get can I just add in a couple things?
go for it.
So the Woodstock movie came out less than a year after the event, and that's really what cemented the whole Woodstock ethos into our minds, into the culture, the rock culture, and the thing about it, and there's been a lot of information that's come out over the years. But as we were, I don't know about you, Mark, but as I was doing research, there, information can be odd at times. There can be conflicting information about things that happened or didn't
You mean to
happen.
tell me that everything you read on the internet isn't true?
Apparently, but
Yeah, no.
so you have, and even within the movie itself, um, they focus on just a select number of bands, partly because of licensing and other things. There's a lot of the music industry side of things on the that interfered, so not every group was represented,
Contractual stuff, yeah, for sure.
and but not every great song was put on the movie, and so people that have watched the movie have a great idea of what happened at Woodstock, but a lot was left out as well. And I know the Woodstock movie, it started as one thing, and then as anniversaries rolled around, they kept adding to it and adding to it, because they were finding more and more material that I thought, or that they thought was good. And I will say this, and then I'll let you finish up your thoughts before we jump in. Is that as I was doing my research, if people go on YouTube, you can actually find video clips now. You can find video clips of the Grateful Dead's performance. You can find video clips of Creedence Clearwater Revival. You can find them of other groups that are featured on the movie, that of songs that were not in the movie. So it's a tremendous resource. So with that in mind, let's
But
get into it.
yeah, I also just want to put a plug into the new documentary. It's not so new now, but you and I were talking about the documentary Back to the Garden.
Back to the Garden. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's an excellent recap. It's digitalized. It's been archived really well. Came out as a complete box set. I forget how many CDs. Now you can find it online, but it's only 8 DVDs or 8 CDs, whatever. But the idea was that they wanted to get the entire music festival, all that archive of music that had been kind of left out and people hadn't been able to hear. It's now something that you can listen to. So definitely, if you want to get your hands on that, go for it. So
Yep.
and lastly, before we get this going here too, and what made this so hard, when you think about the movie, if you've ever watched it, the music that they selected just for the movie really fits the movie, and I think they did a great job. Maybe with a few exceptions, I would have put some different things in there. Um, but the music that was left out, some of it really could have definitely been an add-on, or maybe they could have. I know what they're trying to do in the movie, so it's hard to say, "Oh, you should have cut back on the footage and put more music in." It was a music festival after all, but it was a historical moment, and they captured that, and they knew what they had. They knew they were in a historical moment in time, so I think they were trying to capture that and preserve that as well. So kudos to
Well,
them.
and the music that they chose to put in there, you and I talked about this, that
Right.
it definitely has a certain message in it. It has, there's an ethos about it that they were,
Yeah, they did a great job just, putting the movie together with the musical pieces.
yeah.
It ties everything really nicely together. They put a lot of thought into that for sure.
So hopefully,
Uh,
as we go through this list, maybe it will, you know, remind you. Oh yeah, that tune was big at that time, and at the
yeah,
festival. And I really liked it. We also hope that will introduce you to some deeper cuts that have been forgotten about, and maybe give you some tidbits of information that you weren't aware of. I learned a lot. So
yeah, me too. And
let's hit it.
I've just yeah. So out of 32 bands, there were 3 nights. We're gonna go through each of the bands really quickly, just so everyone hears the names of the bands. But we're gonna give you our pick if we use that band or not. It's impossible to get 25 out of 32 bands, so you're gonna leave stuff out, obviously. And we're gonna be preferential to our own taste to some level, I think. So yeah, I think some of these are going to be what you're going to have found in the movie because honestly, that was their best out of the set. So here we go. So our first band of the night who started off was Richie Havens, and tidbit information here, and Jim, you know this as well, is that Sweetwater was supposed to be the opening act, and they were supposed to go on, but due to traffic trying to get into the festival, they got backlogged. So Richie Havens stepped up to the plate. They asked him to play, and he said, "Yeah." And he didn't even have a guitar, so he was using a borrowed guitar. So we both, I think, chose his last song of the night, which was "Freedom." He played 10 songs that day, and a couple of them he was playing because he was asked to keep filling in time because Sweetwater still hadn't gotten there, but they were almost there. So he's like, okay. And he kept playing and playing and playing.
Yep.
But that was that one. And Freedom was an improvised song. And that's pretty impressive when you stop and think about the amount of people that were already there and there were more coming. But I was pretty impressed with that. And it's just not that I'm a huge Richie Havens fan, but my God, what he did was amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And I have a bit of tidbit of information here. So, as Mark said, Sweetwater was supposed to go first. They got there and went on pretty much right after Richie Havens. There was an opening prayer done by an Indian. I forget what they call them.
Swami,
Yeah,
Swami.
Swami. And then Sweetwater went on. Now, Richie Havens, in the course of doing Freedom, he started to add an old spiritual called Motherless Child.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetwater on their first album did their own cover of Motherless
Motherless.
Child, and that's what they opened their set with at Woodstock, Motherless Child.
Yeah.
So there was an instant connection there, which I thought was very cool. And if you're not familiar with Sweetwater, which I really wasn't, and so I listened to that Motherless Child, but I also listened to What's Wrong, and I thought that was a really interesting tune.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's actually a very popular band. So that would be band number two, which is Sweetwater. They also have played a 10-song set. And my pick, actually, I got some picks from them. Believe it or not, they got two, and they were pretty popular songs of the day. And I think people still may or may not know them. But "Let the Sunshine In" I picked, and "Oh Happy Day." I remember when we were growing up as kids, we even heard that on the radio, and I still think about that, never knowing who actually sang it back
Well,
then.
that's
But
the thing. I mean, sometimes we love the song and had no idea at that age who was singing it.
right, and so yeah, I mean, I think people know the titles. "Let the Sunshine In." Come on, everyone. I hope everyone knows that if you're into classic rock and roll. But yeah, Sweetwater's the one that sang that. So I don't know. Did you do any of the Sweetwater?
Yeah, Motherless Child and What's Wrong.
Oh, what's wrong? Okay. All right, cool. So band number 3, somebody lesser known to people today, including myself, but that was Bert Summer. I didn't choose any picks from him. I did go back and listen to some of his music. Uh, it's not my style of music, but certainly it appealed to people back then, and he was a prolific songwriter at the time. So that's probably why he was invited. And, he had a 10-song set list as well. Did you pick
I
from
didn't
him?
pick anything by him, but Tim Hardin, I think, was right before him, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe right after, but he was next. And
I wrote it in order that I got it in, but it changed. Like you said already, there's discrepancy in the set
yep.
list and
So
things
Tim
like that.
Hardin,
So,
just to kind
yeah,
of
Tim Hardin.
he was one that I was not familiar with, and part of it was because he died so young and so close to after the Woodstock event. But he was a folk singer, or in that vein. But as I listened to a couple of his tunes, particularly one called "If I Were a Carpenter," I really thought that was a really nice song, and then
He
I was
does
able to
America
find
too,
what's that?
which Crosby. I said he does America, and Crosby, Stills and Nash play that one as well. I always thought it was an original from Crosby, Stills and Nash, but I think they took it from Bert Summer. So,
Yeah,
but it's a great
well,
tune.
Tim Hardin, you're talking about.
I mean, Tim Hardin. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, so moving right along to the next one on the list was Ravi Shankar, and he only played 3 songs over 42 minutes. And if you're into that music, jamming out to the sitar, go for it. I'm gonna make a really crazy obscure reference because there are no bands using sitar, but I can tell you one who's currently using it right now, and they do a phenomenal job. I love this band. Um, and I play it all the time. At Thievery Corporation. If you've ever listened to
Hmm.
them out of
I'm not
Washington
familiar with
D.C.,
that.
love Thievery Corporation, and they play a lot of live. It's just very eclectic music. It's kind of like a throwback to some like acid rock or whatever, with the DJ
Well, and of
component.
course, 1969, when Woodstock occurred, sitar was huge in a lot of bands. In
Yeah, because
fact,
you had the influence of you had the Beatles doing it, but you
right,
had the
it's
everyone was
very
going
much
into
a
the
signifier in psychedelic music. They even have on
yeah.
Spotify. They have a playlist called Sitar Rock. So he was, and Ravi Shankar was the master. Um, and he also was playing. You think about sitar; it's an ancient instrument, and you're crouched on, you're on the sitting on the floor in kind of an Indian style, what they call Indian style sitting posture, legs crossed,
Cross leg,
cross
crisscross
legs,
episode.
and it was pouring rain, and so he was battling the elements. And if you've ever seen the Woodstock stage, and rain was a constant during the festival, and it wreaked havoc on that wooden stage that was built very quickly. So you got to give him credit. Doing
I can
Indian
tell you,
classical
living here in
music.
upstate New York, it just poured rain, so
Yeah.
very happy for today.
All right.
Um, so moving right along, the next one, and by the way, this is all Friday night,
Yep.
and so the next two ends Friday night. So Melanie,
Right.
a lot of people don't know who Melanie was, but she was actually pretty popular back in the day. I know you were. I was going to put a song down for her, but I chose not to. But she did a 7-song set, and
Well,
I guess you had no.
one of the big tunes that she's known for is called "Beautiful People." I put that down because she did that in her set. I was not familiar with her either, but yeah, big folk artist at the time, and
You have to be into folk music pretty heavily to get
yeah,
into some of these people. But, and ending the evening out late at night was Joan Baez, and there is a clip of her in the movie, and it's a pretty cool clip. Not that I'm a big folky as I just said, but Joan Baez obviously was just really well known. I mean, she was when you think folk music, you think Bob Dylan, you think Joan Baez. those
Yep.
two creep up in your mind really quickly. And so I did her song Joe Hill that she played at Woodstock, and it is on the film.
Yep.
So it's just great. It's a really good tune. And then she does the story of her husband going to jail, and then she sings a song prior to that. So that ends the Friday night set list. Going into
Did
Saturday
I thought
mornings.
Arlo Guthrie went that night as well.
Uh, did I miss Arlo Guthrie? Maybe, you know.
Yeah, because
I think I did.
So let's just
Right.
add Arlo
Yeah.
Guthrie on there. Arlo Guthrie
Yep. Right.
was
Arlo's
on
up
that
last.
first night, and for him, it's Coming into Los Angeles. Great tune, and
Yeah, I was
it's an
gonna put that
iconic
one
moment
down,
on the
but
film. Was
yeah,
that?
no, that's a classic. I said that's a classic
Yeah.
song. I love that one, and that was going to be on my list. And so I guess I didn't make 25. I'm actually going to be on 26 because I forgot to put Arlo on the list. All right, so cool. Moving into Saturday now. This is where it gets a little bit strange because most of the music festival took place over this entire Saturday 24-hour period into Sunday afternoon. But we'll move quickly through, I hope. And so we start off with Quill, a band I was not familiar with at
Yeah.
all. And going in and listening to them, I was still a little on the fence. I'm not quite sure where I stand on Quill. Not really what I would consider music that I would sit down and listen to, but maybe it'll appeal to people today if you go check them out. They played
Well,
a
I can tell
4-song
you,
set.
yeah, on Spotify they have one album from 1969, which and there's one tune off of there that they did in their set called "They Live the Life," which is representative of their time there. I think the other albums are from a later period of time. So
Yeah. So now we're going to get into some pretty strong stuff. So the next band to play was Santana. Love Carlos. As you can see, Santana's right behind me.
yeah,
And here I had to cut one of his songs out, but I'm going to just mention it anyway. But I went with Soul Sacrifice, which,
yeah,
by the way, is on the movie. Oh,
yep.
my God. What a great live version of Soul Sacrifice. Just
Yep.
seriously kicking. I also did Persuasion, which was actually the song that he played before Soul Sacrifice. And they did an 8-song set, just so you know. And Carlos is just so smooth, just
Yeah.
so smooth, and that's what's so it shines. His rhythm section, and it's
Yep.
just so just different from the time. That Latin influence is just different, and and he jams. So anyway, Soul Sacrifice.
Yeah, I have that down. What I found an interesting piece of information that so Santana was an up and coming band. They were not known until Woodstock, and they were the concert promoter uh, was Bill Graham was also the concert promoter for Chicago, and Chicago had signed a contract with Phil or with Bill Graham that allowed him to. He kind of dictated where their concerts were going to be and when they were going to be. They had signed on to play Woodstock, and Bill Graham wanted Santana to perform at Woodstock, and so he purposely moved Chicago into. He made them fulfill a concert date at Fillmore West on the same weekend as, which is out in San Francisco, same weekend as Woodstock, to make sure that Santana made it onto Woodstock. And it was because of Woodstock and the movie that Santana became an international hit. So I was not aware of that. Interesting information.
That's cool. All right, moving on. John Sebastian followed Santana with 5 songs. I like John Sebastian. I just didn't put any picks down because there's just not enough room. So
Yeah, I didn't
you
either.
got any
I liked him with what was his band?
Spoonful, Love and Spoonful.
Love and Spoonful, Summer in the City. And he did a solo version of that. And if I had to choose one, I would choose that one. I really like that song.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So then Country Joe comes on and does an unscheduled performance, And we'll skip over that and move on to the Keith Hartley band. And Keith Hartley is somebody I hadn't heard of, nor the music. And boy, I'll tell you what, that was an eye opener. I know you felt the same way.
Yeah, well, I told you, take a
He played,
listen.
yeah, he played 5 songs for his set. But boy, I'll tell you, I'm going to go back and listen to a little bit more of his stuff because it's really good.
It rocks.
And yeah, it does. If you really have blues with a couple of little surprises in there, yeah, this is definitely a cool band to check out.
And I would, if you want to just zero in on one number, I would say "Sinning for You." That was the one that really grabbed my attention. So good.
All right, nice. Moving along into the incredible string band. They played 6 songs. Never heard of them until I was doing the research for this, and they're still playing today, honestly. And I personally don't care for the music, but hey, that's why music is out there. It's to appeal to those who do enjoy it, and great musicians. I'm not going to knock their musicianship because they are really great musicians, but it's just I'm not. It's a little more. I don't even want to say call alternative, but
Well, they were considered progressive. They were considered a progressive group, and
I like that better.
Yeah, and what they were, they incorporate a lot of the world music elements within their music,
I'm
and
good with all that, but
yeah, it's all over the map, and it does
I just
take
think
some
other
getting
bands are more
into.
successful. Yeah, I think there are other bands that are more successful incorporating, but that's just how you work as a band. You just develop your own sound, and that's their
Yep.
sound. So,
Yep.
all right, moving on to the next in the list. Again, this is a Saturday, and this is Canned Heat, and they performed in the afternoon. And of course, going up the country was my pick. I did On the Road Again as
Yep.
the second one, but
Yep.
I had to X out something. I like them both a heck of a lot. And I only played 6 songs, so for me to grab 2 of those, that was pretty good, I thought. But
Yeah.
Canned Heat's a great band, and we did this thing about underrated bands just a little bit ago, and there's another band I think is highly underrated. They just didn't get going fast
Underrated,
enough
you mean?
when they did. Yeah,
So,
that's what I said, underrated. What do
okay.
you think I said?
Overrated.
No, I
All
said underrated.
right.
All right, moving on. Mountain band, killer.
Yeah.
I did 1 song from them, and silly me, I forgot to put what their count was. I think they had around 9 or 10.
Yeah, it was between 8 and 10, I would say.
Yeah, they had a pretty substantial number. I put Southbound Train on there. This is a band that people really know. People think of them as heavy Southern rock, and I don't know if I classify them that, but sure.
Yeah, I had Beside the Sea. I just like the groove of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, great stuff
Music, yeah. Well, music
that you don't
is
hear
just
very
that.
often.
Yeah, you're going to be influenced by a particular beat or a sound that you're not like, wow, that's different. So it's what attracts you to that song. We've had this discussion already. That's what pulls me in: the music first, then the lyrics.
Yep.
All right, so moving on. After Mountain, one of our favorite bands, one of my favorite personal bands, is the Grateful Dead. They are only seen briefly in the Woodstock movie. Actually, they are not as a band. You only see Jerry Garcia in a quick interview, and his terminology of this thing was biblical, epical, epical.
Epical.
Epical. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, they only played 5 songs in an hour and a half, which is very typical for the Dead, especially of the 1969 genre. They played basically a normal set for themselves there. And I picked 2 songs just because I love the Grateful Dead. And that would be Saint Stephen, and of course, their mainstay for any show basically was Dark Star. And I put Dark Star in there. So that probably took up an
and
hour.
I didn't really choose one. But the legend is that they don't consider that set to be one of their highlight sets. They came on after Heavy Rain. They were dealing with stage issues with flooding on the stage, things like that. And I think the frustration within them was building because they were apparently every time Jerry and Bob went up to the microphone, they were getting shocks and things like that, just because nothing was grounded right. They but then they turn
Things you
around
have
and
to deal with as a musician, you know.
I know, but their last song, "Turn On Your Love Light," 50 minutes long, and so
But you know what? Pigpen used to sing that, and it was just always very different because it wasn't just a song that you sang; it was a story,
yeah.
and always was bringing in the crowd and talking to the crowd and getting the crowd involved. And that's why I love that song as he plays it, and does it.
But like I said at the beginning of the
After his,
video, I was able to find some video footage on YouTube from their performance. So it's worth checking out if you're into it.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Moving along, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Oh man, I love this band. Yeah, I did too. I would have done more. But Born on the Bayou, one of my all-time favorites. I think I've stated that before in the past. I love that song. And Susie Q. I just
Okay.
think that is very quintessential 1969. I just think of the movie Platoon when I think of Creedence Clearwater Revival and I hear these songs. Born on the Bayou was a song basically about, poor people being sent off to the military and rich people getting the pass because they had the money. And disproportionately speaking, Black Americans took more of the recruiting and the drafting than anybody else. And it's a great Americana song. I want to call it Americana, and that's why I hit my list. So, all right, cool.
And
What about you?
I put a spell on you. The performance at Woodstock was intense. And again, I found some video footage that's been uh, they've enhanced the visuals. It looks really good. And John Fogerty did not want them in placed in the movie. He thought their performance was subpar. But if you look at it, it's amazing. It sounds amazing. The energy that they're playing, and they were playing at like 3 in the morning. It was or sometime well after midnight, and
Well, yeah,
and
the Dead played until 12:05 that day. They played an hour and a half, as I said. They
so
were
maybe they
starting
went on
at
at
10:30.
12:30. That's what it was.
So
They went on at 12:30.
Yeah, Credence came on about 12:30, and they played probably another hour plus,
Yeah.
and yeah, they played into the wee hours of the morning. Followed by Janis Joplin and the Cosmic Blues Band.
Yeah.
She played 10 songs for that list. And by the way, I forgot to write down the set list of Creedence. I think they had around 10 or 12, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in that neighborhood. Anyway, Janis, I had 4 for Janis, but I crossed out 3 of them just to cut the numbers down. But I could not cross off a piece of my heart. I did Ball and Chain.
That's what I did.
On here.
Yeah, I
Ball
did
and Chain.
Ball and Chain.
Yeah.
Because of, again, I saw some footage on YouTube, and I was like, from Woodstock, and I was like, wow, she just
Janet just
she just knocks
so
it out of the park
mind-blowing,
with
man.
that. So
God, it's crazy, her vocals. Just
Yep.
crazy how good she is. This was an interesting one because after Janis, this is like 3:00 in the morning. Sly and the Family Stone come on.
yeah,
And everyone was really worried in Woodstock about having Sly come on here because generally he would either miss performances or he only played for like a half an hour and then walk off stage or whatever. He just a little too much fun, let's put it that way. And he when he's on, he's on. And listening to Sly and Family Stone is just really cool to listen to.
Yep.
But I put on I Want to Take You Higher, which is definitely on the Woodstock movie.
and I
They
put
played a
dance.
total of
I put dance to the music.
Yeah, that's also a classic too. So,
Yep.
But they played a 9-song set, and pretty much
Rocked
bringing in the stage in the early morning hours. So,
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one. The Who.
Yep.
The Who had 23 songs in their set, and they played for an hour and
Yeah, but
40
some of those
minutes, I
songs
think.
are like this long.
Yeah,
Well,
they're really short. So I put
they
on
ended up doing the
mine
whole Tommy set.
Pinball Wizard. Yeah, pretty much the whole Tommy set. And then I put on Pinball Wizard, um, and I did leave it to. I thought I put on two. Okay, I only put on the Pinball Wizard because I was really worried about.
I put down Summertime Blues. Summertime
Yeah,
Blues.
but
They
yeah,
they they
and that
you
was
know
a cheer song.
what's that?
I said it was a Blue Cheer song first,
Doesn't matter.
I believe,
Uh,
but no, it
no, it
doesn't
was an
matter.
Eddie Cochran song.
Oh, good. Okay, so we're
Summertime
both
Blues
on.
was Eddie Cochran, and they just the intensity at 5 in the morning, which is around the time that they played that song.
Yeah, it was in the wee
Think about it.
hours. But there was the Abby Hoffman incident too, and
Yep.
I'm not going to get into that. Yeah, they played from 5 a.m. 6:05 in the morning, roughly. Yep.
Yeah.
So then everyone is just groggily waking up in the morning, and guess who comes on? But Jefferson Airplane.
Yep.
So you have Grace Slick coming on there to wake you up in the morning, and they played a set of 13 songs, and they played for an hour and 40 minutes. The Who only played for about an hour, a little over an hour. But I put on White Rabbit, and it's considered one of her best performances of White Rabbit. And,
that's what I put down.
Yeah, White Rabbit for sure. And that's a Grace Slick song too, by the way, if you didn't know that. Anyway, moving along is Joe Cocker and the Grease Band. And, Joe Cocker, of course, he his material and puts his own spin on it. And so this is a great song that I put on here. I could have put a couple of them on here, but he played a 13-song set list, and I put on Feeling All Right, which is a trap song. So
I put down With a Little Help from My Friends. I mean, it's just that's the one everybody knows.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just an amazing version of it once it gets rolling.
Yeah, it is a very classic version of it. The only reason I didn't pick it, and don't hate me, people out there.
Oh, hate them.
Understand what I'm saying when I say, the backup singing is very lackluster. If you wanted backup singers using that falsetto voice, you should have just sprung and gotten two female vocalists to do your backups. They shouldn't have done. They should have done what they did to that, and that's just how it is. I every time I listen to it, I'm like, okay, I'll listen to. I love the song. Joe does a great justice to the song, but backup, can't stand it.
It's all right.
Okay, did you do any for that one or not?
Yeah, With a Little Help from My Friends.
Oh yeah. My bad. All right, so moving on is Country Joe and the Fish. This is the set that I really liked. This is 13 songs, and I picked rock and soul music, which is in the movie itself, but it's such a great tune. I think it's really good Country Joe feel. Like if you listen to his albums, this is such a perfectly designed song, especially for the Woodstock Festival. So I thought, what rock and soul.
So the song that that most people, if they know Country Joe, is the Fish Cheer, and I Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die Rag. That was actually done the day before by by Country Joe, as a solo between Quill and Santana.
I remember I did that.
Yeah, and so when you watch the movie, it is taken out of context, and he actually did that as a solo, just without the rest of his band. He did that the previous day, and then he did.
Oh, you strong man.
Yeah,
I think he just blew everybody away with that when he sang that. So anyway, yeah. So is that what you're picking then?
Yeah, yeah. I'm fixing to dye rag.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about this band before and my absolute love for Alvin Lee. And so 10 years after, and 10 years after came out there and they played 6 songs. And I've already stated this song before in another episode, but I'm going to say it again because it's so freaking good. And that is I'm Going Home. And that was a piece done by Helicopter. And yeah, it's
Yep,
just self-explanatory. So I need not say anymore. How
yep.
about you?
I don't have
Anything?
anything for him except that. I mean, I have that song, so
Yeah,
definitely.
cool. One of my favorite bands, the band.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of people knew the band before they were the band because they were the backup band for Bob Dylan, and those those guys were hand in hand together for quite a while. And but the band itself, just you know, again, these are one of these most underrated bands, even though they were so prolific. But they went out in the mid '70s because of so many inner turmoil issues within the band, and they just felt they needed to take a break. And as I watched this documentary yesterday from Robbie Robertson, he sums it up nicely. We all agreed that we wanted to go out with a good feeling, and this was the right thing. And they made the last waltz, and they called all their friends in that helped them along the way, 1959, all the way up to where they were. And you have some phenomenal people who are on that stage, and to think about that and watch that movie still gives me goosebumps. It's such a great piece of
Yeah.
footage. And Martin Scorsese does the film so beautifully, and but the music was there, and sadly they never got back together. They just went this way and that way, and
Yep.
everyone just went and did their own thing, and they never came back to the band. And it's very sad, but they left a body of music, thank God, that is so good.
Yep.
So I did The Wait,
That's what I
obviously,
did.
and
Yeah, they're
I
not
shall
featured
be
in the movie, but they are. They did most of their set was from their first album, and
yeah, the Pink House.
yeah,
So from the band, Johnny Winter comes on, and I like Johnny Winter. If you like blues, you gotta like Johnny Winter. He did an 8-song set list, and his brother Edgar came in there and played 3 songs with him. I Can't Stand It, Tobacco Road, which a lot of people probably know, and To Tell the Truth. But I didn't pick any songs from him just because
no,
I needed.
I did not.
All right, so Blood, Sweat, and Tears is the next band, and a lot of people don't realize, but Blood, Sweat, and Tears, they were at Woodstock, and that was a shock to me because I didn't realize they were. So
Yeah,
anyway, I chose Spinning Wheel, and then I had to take
that
it off the list because I had too many.
that's what I put. Spinning wheels.
So yeah, but you get to keep it because I was over and I had to cross it off. All right. So on to Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. And I added the Young in there because Neil Young played with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. But in the movie, they leave him off because Neil Young did not want to be filmed.
In fact, he
And
was
so the
adamant
footage,
about not being filmed.
very much so, even though he does pop up a couple little cameos in there by accident. But yeah, they played 2 set lists. They did an acoustic set and they did an electric set. And if you watched our prior episode about electric versus acoustic, that might be helpful before you listen to this one. So stop what you're doing, go back and find that episode, listen to
Although we're
that,
almost
and
at the
then
end of
come
this
back to
episode, so you might as well.
I know, but you know what? It happens that way. So I had to take off the one song for the acoustic set because it was just I had too many songs, and I put Marrakesh Express on there. But for the electric, I kept both of them, and that was Long Time Gone, and Wooden Chips. How can you not?
Yep.
Um,
I have Guinevere and Wooden Chips. So I love Guinevere. I love the
yeah,
song.
I almost put that. Um, but long time gone is it's in the movie as an intro song. It's so apropos for the movie. I love that. they use that song in the movie. So next is the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. Again, a band I never loved, researching and really getting involved with this. It's kind of weird, how old I am now, how much I've listened to that and watched that movie and really wanted to know. I mean, I kind of wanted to know the whole set list, but I was like, I'll find it someday. But this forced my hand. Hey, check that out.
Yep.
But the Paul Butterfield Band, again, I didn't really get a chance to get to them, so
Yeah, I don't have
they had
anything.
a 7-song. Yeah, I didn't choose any songs from them, but they had a 7-song set list. Yeah, so almost to the end here, we had Sha Na Na, and they had a 12-song set list. But there's, it's that doo-woppy thing, and back then, that's great. But I think they were a little bit out of place in terms of their timing for the whole Woodstock thing. But nonetheless, they were there. I didn't pick any songs from them because, quite honestly, it's not a Sha Na Na thing. How about you? Anything?
No, I agree. I thought they were
All
out of place. I appreciate what they were trying to do, but I'm not a Sha Na Na fan either. So
Yeah. Sadly, we used to watch them on television when we were kids growing up. Remember
late
that?
'70s. Yep. But
All
think
right.
about this. So they were between the Paul Butterfield Blues Band and
The last band. Go ahead.
Jimi Hendrix.
You do it.
So
Again,
Jimi Hendrix came on at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. The crowd went from 400,000 down to about 30,000 by the time he went on, and yet he had such an iconic set. I'm sure everybody that left, looking back, are kicking themselves.
Kick themselves hard.
And
he had a 17-song set list.
17 songs, yeah. And the two that I chose were Voodoo Child and Hear My Train a Comin'. Yep. I thought those two rocked.
Yeah, I picked both of those. Actually, I had 3 because obviously I put the Star Spangled Banner on.
And I thought about putting that. Obviously, that's such an iconic, and I talked about that in our acoustic and electric set.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was our top 25. I know we weren't saying like
this. Although it wasn't 25 because we're terrible at doing top lists.
Yeah, I mean, I included obviously the ones I X'd out. So in all fairness, I know I did more than 25, but because I can't hold back. But I tried to keep it to the
25. So to end this, I just wanted to put on a little asterisk, and that of bands that turned down the invitation. Just a quick run through of some of the bands that turned down the invitation to perform, and some are kicking themselves for doing that. Others were kind of indifferent, but bands like The Byrds, The Doors, The Guess Who, Iron Butterfly, Jethro Tull, Led Zeppelin, because of course in Peter Grant's eyes they weren't going to be the spotlight only band. They would have to share. And then the Moody Blues and Procol Harum. And they were even asking Roy Rogers to finish up after Jimi Hendrix with Happy Trails. And he turned it down. So there's a nice little tidbit. So that is our revisit to Woodstock.
Yeah. It's amazing how long it's been since the original. And
51 years.
Still talking, and 51 years, but it's still fresh in people's minds. And I think that's the test of time that we've talked about before in other episodes, how music really just spans decades, and because that will stand the test of time. We've talked about that. And how do we look at bands of today? Kids today look at music very differently than we did. We were very loyal to bands and albums and basically waiting for the next release to come out, which would be no sooner than maybe 9 months to a year or more. And it was a big deal to buy that fresh cut vinyl. You'd be waiting and waiting for that one album to come out, and the stores would stock it, and people would be waiting in lines to go out and grab it. And I'm not talking about the K-Tel album either. I'm talking about, a cut that was ready to go, whether it be Pink Floyd or whatever, and Zeppelin, and people were very, very adamant about their bands, and you were proud to talk about your band and wear their T-shirts, and that was
Yep.
the thing. Today, you don't really see as much of that, and I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I think music really shaped who I was growing up as a kid. And I know music's important to kids today, but they don't have that allegiance to any particular band. I like this song, I like that song, and they just smash it together and in this massive set or playlist that they put on their phones, and then they listen to it over and over again, and then they'll put another set list together, and so I
Yep.
think they have more genre-based music than they have like bands, and I suppose it keeps a fairly open mind in some respects. But I'm looking back at these bands here and the influences that you had all these great folk singers, and then you have all these psychedelic bands playing and just hard rock bands at the time. So there was such an eclectic. Shana Na pops in there at the end, but you have such an eclectic mix in this grouping, but yet such a powerful mix too. And
Yeah.
a lot of these bands are stand the test of time. Kids are going to talk about Jimi Hendrix for decades to come. As long as music exists and rock and roll in some form, his name will be out, and his performance at Woodstock will be out there as well.
Yep.
And I like the fact that Hendrix kind of ends the whole thing as well, because it's kind of like the perfect ending, if
Yep.
you will.
Well, my take on this whole thing, I think one of the reasons why Woodstock has stuck with us for so long, and is that here was a festival that, by all stretches of the imagination, should never have worked. Everything
Yeah.
that could go wrong went wrong in terms of
And it went wrong on a
ticketing
massive.
and the rain and the mud and just everything went wrong. And yet it stayed peaceful, it stayed civil. There were little things that popped up here and there, but overall, everything's, worked. And it was
I
proven
believe too.
how fleeting that was, because just a couple months later, Altamont took place with the Rolling Stones, and that was a very different experience. And maybe we'll talk about that sometime down the line. But within the span of 4 months, you have Woodstock and you have Altamont. And and Woodstock was happening during a period in American history that was very divisive, that was going through extreme turmoil culturally and politically. Look at us today, same place. So maybe revisiting Woodstock, a deeper dive in, and you can find these playlists on Spotify and everything. Might help
I don't even think
refocus.
replicate this concept. You know what I mean? Like you just said, the times are almost unparalleled or parallel, and yet I don't think a music festival could happen. Obviously, we have COVID going on right now, anyway. So
Well,
that's
look
a
at last year. They tried to do a 50th anniversary Woodstock, and it couldn't come together for a multitude of reasons. And
I think that's actually the writing on the wall. And I mentioned this before, that you really can't mess with the original because it was organically done. It just happened. It was spur of the moment. It wasn't something planned. And now that they're trying to plan and they're trying to force it to happen
yeah,
by using that name.
yep,
It's the name alone. And I think just leave it alone. Let it be what it is. The importance
yep,
and the significance that it was. It is iconic and will go down not just in music history. It will be part of history.
yep,
American history.
yep.
So with that being said, everybody, I'm Mark, and this
I'm
is
Jim.
Jim. We are Lead Balloon Rock Talk. Hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see today and you enjoy listening to us, pass it on to your friends. We'd really appreciate that. And for those who've been watching, thank you. We'll see you soon. And next week, we're going to come up with something pretty cool. All right. Yep. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.